This place has a name today, and it's marked on maps. But for many generations, this place was known simply as the West. This portion of the West was in the original Wyoming territories near the entrance to Yellowstone National Park. William Buffalo Bill Cody built a town here in the Rockies, and it still bears his name, Cody, Wyoming. The West that was built by the early pioneers is long gone. Their contributions will forever be left in history. One man, however, has made a contribution to the preservation of the Old West. Bob Edgar, born in the Oregon Basin just south of Cody, has created a town that preserves the Wyoming experience with its reconstructed original buildings and historic cemetery. Walk the streets of Old Trail Town and experience the West of another time.
Old Trail Town is more than a collection of historic old buildings. It's a setting where the ghosts of the past come alive. I'm Clay Gibbons. Old Trail Town, what can you say about it other than it's the most unique collection of old historic buildings that you're ever going to find? It's the vision of a good friend of mine, Bob Edgar.
We have been lucky because we did start early when these old frontier buildings were still here. And it seemed important, and I still think it's important to preserve those things, and we're still out looking.
Bob was a man from the country, born and raised out in the hills, grew up out in the hills. He'd rather sleep outside than indoors. Grew up around guns, wildlife. Became a tremendous marksman with a gun, especially a Colt 45. One day when I was fairly young, my mom made a trip over here to Old Trail Town and brought back 2 drawings, and she gave them to me. And immediately upon looking at those drawings, I was captured. I was pulled into them. There was something about them that said, this man understands. He's got a passion. And I felt like it was the same type of a passion that I had for history. I looked at the bottom of the drawings, and there was his name, Bob Edgar, with his famous logo of arrowhead on the bottom. And through the years, Bob and I grew together. Bob, I believe, saw that same passion in me that he had. Some of these buildings were intact enough that Bob was able to pick them up in one piece and move them here. Other buildings were not that good that he had to number them and draw them and painstakingly take them down log by log, board by board, haul them up to Old Trail Town, and very meticulously put them back together. But oh, what a job he did. He's got cabins from the old ghost town of Arlen, an old saloon, livery stables, blacksmith shops, homesteader cabins, schools, outlaw cabins. Here we are in Butch Cassidy's famous hole-in-wall cabin. Came from the hole-in-wall country around Casey, Wyoming. This cabin, of course, has a lot of feel to it. It's a wonderful place to be, especially now to talk a little bit about Butch and some of the information I've been able to discover about Butch that is not very widely known. Just a couple of years ago, I was doing some inventory, and I was in one of the buildings, and I noticed back in the corner an old set of bellows standing. But behind the bellows was a stick of wood sticking out. I thought, what was that? I found this old cross. Stopped here visiting with some friends and had my arm up on this old saddle, this old relic of the past, rotted wood and rotted leather. And one of my friends said, "Clay, look." I thought he was looking at my sleeve, and I says, "What?" And he pointed to it. And he showed me the bullet hole that ripped through the thing the Indians loved was beads. They loved adornment in their clothing. And the beads were supplied from fur traders and people who would come up and trade with the Indians. The beads mostly came from construction of this cabin. Lucy lived with the 3 young children, all girls, in a tent. And when Luther wasn't around, she had to tend her sheep, move them to greener grass, and move them to water. And she only had one alternative for the kids while she was gone all day, and that was to tether them to the sagebrush to keep them from wandering off. She always left a dog there to protect them from wolves. Can you imagine having to leave your young children tied to sagebrush like an animal? It's a wonderful collection of memorabilia and artifacts from the Old West, starting with the Indians in the fur trade area, and a beautiful collection of arrowheads and stone tools that the Indians used in making their living.
Here's some of the better types that you'd find in this country. Brought these along. This type is about 2,000 years old. This type's about 3,500, and this one is about 7,000.
It's an incredible town put together for the enjoyment of the entire world. But the unique thing that Bob was able to do was to capture the feel and the spirit of the Old West and all the buildings he brought here. When you walk the streets and hear your boots on the boardwalks, you can just feel the people in the buildings coming out and milling around. You can sense their presence here. It's a very unique experience, and Bob's done a tremendous job in being able to save this for the world. Yeah, when you come to Old Trail Town, you'll feel it. You'll know it. And if you're lucky, you'll see the ghosts walking the town.